I will call the work session budget workshop to order for Tuesday, July 6, 2021 at 6:30. Citizens wishing to make comments should email mparks@evermantx.net, mparks@evermantx.net. Citizens' comments received prior to the meeting adjourned will be read to the council. Okay, we're going to start. We have a proclamation to honor Dr. Curtis T. Amos. Whereas the members of the Everman City Council were greatly saddened to learn of the death of Everman Independent School District Superintendent Dr. Curtis T. Amos, and whereas Dr. Curtis T. Amos was an exemplary individual with a consummate professional who worked assiduously to improve the quality of life for the children and youth of Everman and the surrounding communities, and whereas throughout this career and life, Dr. Curtis T. Amos was able to impact and improve the lives of countless children and young adults through means of high quality education and mentorship. And whereas in 2016, Dr. Curtis T. Amos was appointed as the first African-American superintendent to the Everman Independent School District by unanimous vote of the Board of Trustees, making history for the district and the community it serves. And whereas on June 26, 2021, Dr. Curtis T. Amos peacefully passed away in the comfort of his own home, surrounded by love, following a 3-year battle with cancer. And whereas the city of Everman recognizes the significant contributions of Dr. Curtis T. Amos over the course of his distinguished career and extends its sincerest condolences to the friends and families of Dr. Curtis T. Amos, now, therefore, it be proclaimed by the City Council of the City of Everman that we honor the memory of Dr. Curtis T. Amos, reflecting fondly upon his impeccable character, and hereby proclaim July 9th, 2021 as Dr. Curtis T. Amos Day. So we have some of his family members here. You have our condolences, and he will be missed. So,
Is it okay if we snag a picture? Yeah. Perfect.
let's start the weekend for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. You did mean a lot. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Nothing here.
Okay, next item is introduction of the new Director of Public Works, Gilbert Ramirez, item 21129.
So we just throw you under the bus right
Yeah,
now.
he just-
Come on up, Gilbert.
It's okay. It is.
We should have had you walk around before the meeting, but
I just wanted to take the opportunity to introduce him. We had several applicants and went through some interviews, and Gilbert came out on top. And I'll be quite frank and honest on why he came out on top. It was his comments regarding morale and training and wanting to improve the city that really made him a priority candidate. He's well experienced and has a drive to want to improve Everman. We talked a lot today about the issues that we have here in Everman. He has a lot of ideas and concepts that he's looking to implement to try to improve things around town. Hey, Greg. Good timing. So I'll kind of turn the floor over to him. If y'all have any questions or anything for him, you want to talk a minute about your experience, or?
he has hit the ground running today, so.
Poor guy.
Yeah, on his first day, we almost died by an 18-wheeler wiping out a telephone pole that came crashing down. We thought it was going to crash down on top of us. Thank God I have evasive driving skills and drove through the Family Dollar landscaping to escape it. So
Oh, wow.
we survived.
Well, welcome.
Welcome. Well, council, nice to meet you all. We appreciate this opportunity. Worked for the city of Justin since I was 18. I left for 1.5 years, but went back to the city of Justin. So I learned anything from parks, started at parks to utilities, and it's been a great opportunity for me to learn and grow there in the city. But now we have this other opportunity to actually do more for the guys, and to see the opportunity to also give appreciation to public works, because sometimes we're underappreciated, or we don't get to see how hard the guys work, and they need that opportunity to actually see or get counsel or even people to tell them, hey, good job. And that makes them feel good, and it makes them want to come back to work and continue on doing the work that needs to get done. So that's my priority here. So do you guys have any questions?
Only time will tell if he made the right decision or not.
Glad to have you.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Anybody got any questions for Gilbert?
Not yet.
I didn't have a speech either, so I'm sorry. I didn't know I had to have one.
No, that's all right.
I just wanted everybody to put a name with the face, so. And that will grow, so.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Today is his first day, so give him a little time. He's still acclimating and getting in office.
He's not working on the budget yet?
Not
for
yet.
public works?
I gave him a week off because I'm preparing because my auditors will be here next week. So no, he's not working on budget yet.
I would like to see him have a little input on what happens with public
Yes.
works.
Oh, no,
for
we
sure.
Absolutely.
plan on getting together next week.
Okay. Hey,
We've
Mary.
already discussed that.
So,
Thank you so much for the opportunity one more time. And
Thank you.
I'm all ears, and if you guys have something to tell me, I'm available anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
we'll make sure everybody gets your phone number.
Oh, yes. It's the same number. Everyone has it.
Okay, so we're up to discussion items. Item 1, agreement with municipal mosquito for mosquito trapping and abatement services within the city limits. Item number 21131.
So at the last regular city council meeting, we had a citizen approach and provide a complaint regarding the overwhelming amount of mosquitoes surrounding Chambers Creek. Immediately following that meeting, I reached out to Tarrant County Vector Control, which is the mosquito abatement division for Tarrant County. They're the ones that monitor and track the West Nile virus and other diseases that mosquitoes carry throughout Tarrant County, and researched who their preferred vendor is. And that's when I was put in touch with Municipal Mosquito and their services. After a conversation with them, that we don't have any traps that are indicating positive disease carrying mosquitoes, but we do have an overwhelming population that is a nuisance to our residents. So we'd like to research and possibly invest in just some nuisance abatement of the mosquitoes around the creek. He has since provided us with a subcontract, which is attached to that agenda item. This contract has already been reviewed by legal and only requires one edit, and that's just the boycott of Israel disclaimer that goes in connection with any contract that a municipal government has to file. So the attorney was satisfied with that contract, didn't foresee any issues. When we enter into the contract, this would be on an as-needed basis only. This would not be for regular monthly services. They're not going to be coming around and spraying every week or anything like that. Typically, only when we get complaints will they come out and spray. They have provided us with some potential maps and options, and we'd be looking about $2,000 to $5,000 a year for a couple of sprays citywide. So I think that's pretty inexpensive compared to what I was initially believing it was going to be, and maybe a good investment. So I'm going to be bringing this contract back to you as council next week with a recommendation that we approve the contract and move forward and start working on some nuisance abatement on the mosquitoes.
Now, are you going to set aside X amount of money in the budget for this, or are you going to just use discretionary funds?
We would have to, it wouldn't be within the budget. It wouldn't fall underneath its own budget line item. This would fall underneath professional services. I would assume, I guess, under administration. Yeah. So we can include that, estimate that amount included in that line.
So with the attachment, with all this stuff,
They bring,
does this mean they're going to do all this?
no, ma'am.
Okay. I
But
was gonna
that
say
is just their
only
fee
what we
schedule and all the
need.
services that they would provide.
Yeah.
The only services that we are interested in and have discussed with them is truck mounted
Okay.
spraying. So they would go around with the normal mosquito trucks that you see and abate. Now, if for some reason we do have disease infested mosquitoes that pop up, we would actually turn that over to Tarrant County Vector Control. They have a fund and they have the responsibility through our ILA with Tarrant County to provide the abatement of those.
Okay.
And those costs are included in there, but that wouldn't affect us. Tarrant County Public Health covers those costs for us.
So they probably just spray a couple of times a year
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
citywide.
Well, that'd be good though.
Yeah.
We haven't had that done in a long time.
The last time we had it done was shortly after we flooded. Tarrant County stepped up and covered the cost for us one time when we did it then, but we have not had it since, and we don't have a contract with anybody since. And I'd like to have the contract whether we choose to do services or not, because if we don't have a contract, I get delayed on trying to get services out here if we have an instance. I mean, we're a month after the complaint and I'm still not able to act on that complaint. So this will give us the option to provide those services in the future.
Well, the prices look very reasonable
Yes,
for what they're offering. So,
yes, I agree.
any other discussion on that? Okay, item 2, water line construction updates, number 21130.
I included in your, in the agenda item here, just kind of an update. And I'm glad Greg's here because Greg can help speak to some of this, but we've got a couple of contractors that have pretty much implemented the force majeure clause within the contract. Essentially, costs are going up, and that's going to adversely affect the contracts that we have in place. Greg is phenomenal at putting in a contingency amount in there. So after conversing with Greg, I think we're comfortable financially on the project, but there may be a timeline delay on these as we have to work out the details between the funding partners at Texas Water Development Board and CDBG. Do you want to speak any more to that, or?
I think you got it. The contingency we've got in there is really, we've gotten such good bids. We bid all of our projects. The Texas Water Development Board job, we bid all of them. And we've got, I believe it's around $300,000 that is not committed to any of our construction jobs. So that's the contingency Craig's talking about. If we do wind up paying or making a deal to pay some increased material costs with our contractor, and I'm only doing the second contractor. The first contractor that's underway, I don't have any of that price increase problem with him. So we can more than cover any material increase costs with the $300,000 that we have not committed at this point. And right now, that's just money we won't borrow from the Texas Water Development Board.
Okay.
Are they having problems getting materials and stuff, supplies?
There's a lot of that.
I've heard a lot of people complaining about it.
I've gotten several contractors to comment on it, and probably 3 that have actually put stuff in writing seeking additional payment. There's definitely a shortage of PVC pipe and a lot of water fittings. I think everybody's figured out that lumber's through the roof.
Yep.
And I think that's about to come back down from what I've been reading. But we've got some contracts that have been in place for quite some time. These contractors are probably due something because their suppliers they're past the time that their suppliers give them whole quotes. And the contractors drug out so far before we actually got started that prices have increased significantly on them.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of them.
And they blame a lot of this on the freeze. And that's probably got the February problem that was statewide. We had, what I'm hearing is resin makers that make the resin for the PVC pipe all shut down during that time in Texas and Louisiana and all along the Gulf Coast. And some of those have not come back up. So at least one of them's just gone out of business.
Wow.
A significant player in that resin production. So there is a shortage, and prices are going up.
Everything you hear nowadays is a shortage. You know, if there's a
Yes.
shortage of chickens, then we're kind of going, what happened?
Yeah.
You know, really.
And I think that goes back to the big freeze too.
Yeah. I was like, good Lord.
I seen a place yesterday, chicken livers. You couldn't order chicken liver because they couldn't get them.
Oh, it's everything's
My
just,
sister's talks about the Kentucky Fried Chicken in her neighborhood. She's been there twice and they don't have chicken. So, don't know why they're open, but
yeah, I was wondering if they were having problems getting supplies for stuff.
this comes into play. This whole thing is just on the job that is Enon, replacing the water line in Enon and then down Christopher. The other job that's currently underway, we're not seeing that from them.
Oh, good.
He purchased all his stuff up front. He mentioned it when he first purchased, and he purchased all his equipment or material up front, stored it in our Shelby well yard. So he doesn't
He's not
Good.
seeing the price increase.
That's good.
But it's hitting every contract since then that we have out here. It's not only this Texas Water Development Board job, it's our county job. Contractors is turned in for notice of price increases on that.
Yeah.
And there again, I've got another entity involved. It's the county instead of just being a city job. It's just a city job. It's pretty simple. If we've got the contingency to cover it, we'll cover it.
That's good.
Got other people's funds involved, so it kind of drags things out.
Yeah. Okay.
So how far has that pushed the dates on the project?
Right now, I wanted to be underway with that second project probably a month ago. And all the contracts were approved with Texas Water Development Board about a month ago. And that's when I wanted to get underway. And this came up about that same time. And I'm still trying to get a pre-construction meeting for that second job for next week, to where, it's probably going to push us 2 months for that project.
That's not too bad.
Not bad at all. I think it took
If you
longer.
said like a year or so,
Took-
I'd be going, what?
Took longer than that to get all the contracts executed and approved.
Yeah. Okay.
Just be nice to have that completed before school started back up.
Wouldn't it?
Yeah, my deal. I want our guy in and out of there before the Fort Worth sewer line gets up to Enon. That's
I think
that's
you got
August
plenty of
9th,
time.
they start on Everman Kennedale Road.
that's the rock I'm up against.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll get there. So, any questions for Greg or Craig?
No, we're good.
You should hear it when we call each other. Hey, Craig. Hey, Greg.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item 3, funding and master drainage study 21132.
Just wanted to provide a quick update on this one. Ms. Allen actually requested that we put this on the agenda in case anybody wanted to speak on this. We are still awaiting a start date from Dunaway, who is going to be the firm that's doing the flood study. The RTC has already provided them with approval to go ahead and move forward. And we're still waiting on the final confirmation from the Texas Department of Emergency Management on their funding part. Haven't gotten final word on them. So we're kind of in limbo in the state right now, waiting for those funds to be released and allocated for this flood study. But that is still the plan. Everything still appears to be going forward. As we continue to move forward, Gilbert actually has some experience with stormwater management, which is going to be an expertise he brings to us that we haven't had on staff before. Greg and his firm in the past has always been the ones that produce and provide our stormwater management plan every year. So I think it's going to be a good mixture with Gilbert working with Tignell and Perkins to develop a good plan going forward. Later on in the budget process, we're going to start talking about expenditures and what streets we want to look at this next year. I know that South Ray Street, and I'm just providing an example, I know that South Ray Street is one of our worst streets that needs an improvement. We have to improve that street. However, I'm actually going to recommend that we hold off just one more year on that to see if we can't find grant funds that are available that will assist with a stormwater drainage system on that road as well to help offset the cost of redoing that street. I don't want to come in and just redo that street without addressing the stormwater drainage system on that street and then wind up having to redo that street again in 6, 7, 8 years because we didn't address the water drainage issue.
Well, the study may tell us we need to do that street. So
That very well may be the case, but we know from experience that South Race in front of Bishop along Christie, that whole area has a storm drainage problem that we have to look at trying to improve. We don't have the funds to do it alone, but I think we do have the resources and the capability to pursue funding assistance through other programs to try to address those issues and resolve them the right way, rather than just putting a Band-Aid on it and in my opinion, wasting funds to temporarily fix an issue that's a serious issue. But other than that, that's the update I have regarding the flooding and the master drainage study, and really just wanted to open up if you have any questions or recommendations or things you would like me to pursue.
Has any of the residents had any problems since then?
We have not had any residential flooding. Now, we have come very, very close with the rains that we had a month and a half, 2 months ago. We came very, very close. PTSD style close. I was terrified as we were dealing with those issues, but we fortunately skimmed by with no major issues. The complaint still is, and rightfully so, that there is a flooding issue. There's no storm drainage over there.
Right.
So it still does fill up the road. It fills up the front of the residential yards, and it's not an issue that we can very easily address. It's going to be an issue that's going to cost millions of dollars to address. And that's why I'm recommending that we pursue these funding opportunities and try to get some help.
Okay, so you're looking at years before anything could be done, correct?
As far as the roadway flooding, it could potentially be years, yes.
Okay, far as the creek, but is there a way that, and have you looked into possibly cleaning out the creek?
So we've done some cleanouts, but part of the problem that we run into is we have to get permits through several different organizations to be able to go in there and alter the ground, which is really what needs to happen, I think. Greg, do you agree with me on that we need to alter that terrain to some extent to be able to actually improve the situation?
Okay, so what's the holdup on that?
We can't legally do that until we get a flood study that indicates what those impacts are going to be.
Okay.
And that's why this flood study done by Dunaway is going to be very, very instrumental in this.
It should give us what our options are, what can and can't, be done, or what can be accomplished, how we can affect the floodplain, basically.
Now, some of those permits though were $50,000 plus, right?
Correct.
So some of them are very pricey.
You get into a court permit, there's $50,000 on the study, easy. Now, hopefully our study that we get done, with RTC.
Yes, Regional Transportation Council.
So is so are you waiting on the government? Or are you waiting on, is this a company, a private company?
Well, it is a private company, but we are waiting on TDEM, the Texas Department of Emergency Management, to actually allocate those funds and give those funds over to us. Technically the county, because we're partnering with the county to get this project done. When they release those funds to the county, then the project will kick off. The COG, Regional Transportation Council, has already agreed and confirmed that they will match those funds and allocate the same amount to expand that study, not just within the city limits, but outside the city limits as well.
The one thing about it, once we get the study done, there's a lot of grant opportunities for flood mitigation. So that's what we're banking on is once we just got to get the study done. We go and do anything now and create flooding upstream, downstream, then they're going to come after us.
Mhm.
So we've got to do what's right for our citizens, but we can't have an effect on either side of us.
That's why we haven't gotten any help.
So you're waiting for the
Financial.
money to do the study? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, ma'am.
And that is how much?
I believe it's $250,000, so roughly. It was somewhere in that ballpark. It was going to be
the
a
study?
Yeah.
yes, ma'am. It was going to be a $500,000 study all the way around to include Everman and surrounding area.
Caught my throat.
But this study with them doing it, will take a lot less time than waiting for the Corps of Engineers and then them spending 18 months completing the study.
Correct.
So that's not a viable option for us.
Now, are there other cities involved? You said around.
Yes, so they're going to be doing a study of the essentially the Fort Worth impact, the allegations that the Fort Worth developments may have impacted the floodways. They're going to research that and see if any of those constructions have adversely affected our floodway. They're also going to be doing a study in the unincorporated areas of Tarrant County around us and checking out what kind of impact that may have had, or what changes or developments we've had that may have impacted that area as well. Essentially, they're going to come in, they're going to take the old FEMA floodplain map that we've got from 1982 or whatever it was developed. And they're going to see what has changed on that floodplain map. And then they should be able to identify the reasons why it's changed. And they should be able to tell us what we can do to alter that or improve that. That's what the study is supposed to do.
We still need to you remember before we were going to do easements, temporary easements for them to get to certain areas of our city.
Yeah, I'd have to bring that conversation back up with the attorneys to figure out exactly what the legal route there is going to be.
We need to see what they need done away. And I'd like to have that thing ready and in place. And when they start the study, they don't have to wait for us to get that done.
Right.
And I know we've already talked to the chambers and some others, and they were all on board as long as it was temporary.
Right.
They don't want a permanent easement coming through their
Right.
property. So, but they may have to gain access to their property to complete the study and do a thorough
I think
study.
they will have to get access for sure. Yeah, we'll have to get temporary easements.
Any other discussion? We're moving forward. It's a slow pace, but we are eventually going to get there. So
Been slow.
we got to remember those, some of these places have been flooding in our city since probably the 50s or before. So
Mhm.
it's nothing new, but it's become our problem. So ours and Craig's. So
Yep.
we're going to get there. So
And Greg's and Landon's and now Guilford's.
Well, we've seen them in that area before, having boats out there going up the streets. There's so much water.
well, they said back in the 50s
This
when
is
they
in
were
the 60s. I
they were
think.
building the school there, Bishop.
Yeah.
And it said it knocked it off its foundation.
Oh, wow.
So,
Wow.
okay, next
Welcome
item.
to Everman.
Next item is American Rescue Plan Act update number 21134.
This is going to be a very brief update. Originally, when we began talking about the American Rescue Plan, we were notified by the National League of Cities that we were allocated roughly $1.3 million. It took a very, very long time for them to distribute the guidance on how those funds can be spent. Now, there's entitlement cities and then there's non-entitlement cities. We fall under the non-entitlement cities, which means we don't get our funds directly from the Treasury. Larger municipalities, I think there was 75 of them within the state of Texas, received their funds directly from the Treasury. One of those is Tarrant County, another one's Fort Worth, Arlington, Dallas, the big metropolitan cities. So the way that our funds will work is the governor has to request those funds to be dispersed to the state. Once those funds are dispersed to the state, we would go through the Texas Department of Emergency Management to get our portion of those funds. Unfortunately, we are in limbo right now because the governor has not requested the funds from the Treasury. It is unknown right now if he is going to request those funds from the Treasury. I don't want to speculate on the reasons why that request hasn't been made, but essentially what was allocated to us is still currently not available. However, I do not foresee any reason why those funds would not be available in the future. I think this may just be a political issue that I'm trying to steer clear of. But what they have done is they have provided the guidance on what these funds can be spent on. So next week, I'm going to try to, it's a 38-page
Yes.
double-sided guidance on what you can spend the funds on. So I'm going through that and doing the research, and then I'm going to bring that back to you next week to provide you a summary of what would qualify for ARPA funds. We have until 2024 to decide how we're going to spend these funds, and then we have until 2026 to actually spend these funds. Some of the great things about ARPA is that they provided a lot of latitude, the federal government did, on spending these funds within infrastructure, to include water and sewer infrastructure. So I'm going to, of course, bring back some recommendations that we invest in that area because we all know that our infrastructure needs it. But I'm also going to come back and make a recommendation to council that council appoint a special committee. Now, whether that committee be the Planning and Zoning Committee or whether you want to comprise several different people together, there's going to be a lot of requests that come in for these funds. And I think we need to get some oversight and have that special committee that's designated by y'all to provide that oversight and filter out which ones they feel is the most important to bring you back final recommendations on how these funds should be spent. So I'll get that to you next week and we'll start that process.
Oh, more reading material.
Yes.
Hey, at least I'm
It's-
condensing it from
it-
38 pages.
Yes.
And it's like 8-point font at that. I mean, it's,
Oh, my.
Yes, we have been,
Thank you.
we
these are the
have
rules.
fun
Pass
reading
out
material.
magnifying glasses.
Yeah,
But
thank you
It-
so much.
it is definitely more flexible than the CARES Act funds. So we will be able to use it on more things. So we definitely have a list that we've started thinking about and would like to bring forward. But
One of those is for an example, we asked Craig about 6 months ago to provide us a cost estimate on replacing the water and sewer lines underneath Forest Hill Drive before RTC comes in here and redoes that whole roadway. So we don't have to go underneath that roadway once it's redone and repair anything. We could utilize those funds for that project. That would be a qualifying project.
If you can just get PVC.
Yeah, depending on the price of PVC, that could be an eligible project. Personnel costs may be an eligible. There's a lot of different latitude that's given towards this.
software, technology, lots of different things.
Do we have any questions?
Not yet.
Okay, next item, budget workshop, salaries and benefits, item 21133. Just keep in mind, these are departmentized. We're not going to be singling out individuals on their pay. If you want to do that, that'll be done in executive session. So we will not entertain questions during the regular meeting on individual salaries.
And I have provided copies of the PowerPoint in front of you, and then the individual salary information is a separate thing, separate document. Yeah.
No. Sorry. I was just looking at the time.
Oh, no. All right. So we'll just go ahead and get this rolling. Historically, a 5% merit increase was approved by council annually. But as we have learned the past few years, that it's not necessarily, it wasn't necessarily equitably distributed among the employees. So we have done a compensation study through TML, which we brought forth a few weeks back so you guys could start looking at. And with that, Craig has been working on the new pay scale and then the implementation process that will, we have provided you with the actual pay scale and schedules previously, but I've also included it here. I'm going to discuss the budget impact that this will have and briefly touch on the annual performance evaluation review and anniversary dates. So the first, this slide and the next slide is just a repeat of the information that we have given you of the actual position restructure and the grade, the position titles and the grade levels. And then we have the exempt and non-exempt salary schedule. But we're not going to go over that line by line. That's just for informational purposes. Okay, and I know this is the main thing that you all were interested in how the new pay scale will impact the budget. So bottom line, 120,892. And you have the different departments, the general fund, water sewer fund, economic development fund. The city may see additional savings also not included in this total, such as salary savings of vacant positions that have yet to be filled, benefit savings of newly categorized positions, as well as budgeted hours not worked. So potentially that number can be higher. Any questions so far? She's jumping ahead. I see.
How many vacant positions do we have? That's
Currently,
What's that?
we have 2 full-time vacant positions within the utility billing department that are actually being converted to 3 part-time at this point. So that'll, I think those savings are already calculated in, correct?
What's that? I'm sorry.
The 2 UB vacant positions.
Mhm.
Yeah, those savings are already calculated in here, but we've got, I believe, 2 part-time vacancies within Public Works.
No, the savings is not calculated in there. The
Okay.
positions are calculated in
Oh, okay, okay.
there. So
Um,
the longer it takes to fill those positions, the additional savings we'll see.
And then I believe we still have 1 library part-time position.
Two.
2. So 6 part-time, 7 part-time positions currently are vacant. No full-time positions are vacant right
So how much of that 120,000 is off of just unfilled positions?
now. No, that's assuming all positions are filled. We'll see
it?
more
Okay.
than that if we have
Right.
vacancies that take place.
That's what I said,
I
not
was just-
included.
Should salary savings of vacant positions?
That is,
Additional.
that's additional savings.
Okay,
We may see additional savings.
Okay.
I mean, the
For
savings,
salary.
at the end of the year, it may be up to $170,000 in savings, depending on timing and these other,
okay, so we're looking at a minimum of
a
120.
minimum of 120,000,
Okay.
correct?
Now I understand.
So is everybody getting their 5%? Am I understanding?
No,
No.
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 Can you go through that one more time?
Yeah.
I'll-
So-
I'll let
I
you
know
speak
it's
on
been
that.
confusing.
No, that's
Yes.
okay. So essentially, I recommend we do away with 5% merit.
Okay.
We have got to at some point hit the reset button, and we have got to make our pay equitable. We can't, as a city, we can't afford to come in and bring everybody's pay up to where it needs to be while still continuing to give 5% merit increases every year to some of us. It will bankrupt us if we do that. It's not a good structure. For whatever reason, the city at one point did have a pay scale that we went by, but I don't know what transpired that pay scale went away. So the whole purpose in implementing a pay scale is to, one, bring everybody up to an equitable pay rate, compensating them compared to each other at a fair rate, compensating them for the position that they're in at a fair rate compared to like-sized cities, as well as providing a cap for the position they're in. At some point, employees are going to cap unless they choose to promote or further their education and do something different. There just has to be that cap. Otherwise, we may have a public works employee who started at $12 an hour, has been here for 30-something years, but because he's received a 5% merit raise every year, he's making more than the police chief or the fire chief or the economic development director because there's never a cap. And then all of a sudden, that workload tends to drive down, and it's not an equitable pay. We've got one employee making this much when we've got a hardworking public works employee who's out here busting his tail essentially for the minimum that we provide. So there has to be an equitable range set, and that's what the purpose of the pay scale is.
how
So
did- oh, go ahead.
no, okay. So where they would get a continual increase is every step on that scale. Let me go back one.
Mhm.
As you go from 12, I'm just looking at grade A, step 1 to 2. $12 an hour to $12.42, that is a 3.5% increase. Every year, an employee is guaranteed when this is adopted, a 3.5% increase every year. When we come back as council and we start talking about budget, not this year, but after this is adopted, we will look at the economy status. We'll see what our pay scale is compared to like-sized cities, see what everybody else is doing. And that's when we would bring forward, okay, do we need to consider raising that minimum?
Okay.
If we raise that minimum, then all the other rates go up with it. And that's called a cost of living increase. That's when we would implement a COLA. They wouldn't get a standard 5% every year. Could they get a 5% one year? Yes. If city council says we need to increase our pay scale by 2.5 or at 1.5%, and they still get a 3.5%, that equals a 5% raise. but we'll address that on an annual basis, depending on the economy, depending on what our finances look like, and what position we're in to do that.
Are we going into executive session?
We can.
If we're gonna talk about names.
Yes.
Well, anything,
She says, I need to. She said.
okay,
Yeah.
you want to go into executive session? Okay, when we get through this, then we'll go into executive session.
Okay, well, I think back when we did this with the 5% across the board, it was at the point where some of the employees were not getting anything.
Right.
Basically. And at the time, we felt like at the time that we should at least give everybody what we agree on, like if it was 3% or 4%. You know, we did the 5% because we could at the time because of the budget.
I do not disagree with you in the
So,
least.
It's kind of like, you know, we didn't just do 5% all the time.
Right.
You know, but
It served its purpose at the
yeah,
time, but
it did at the time.
right
And
now,
that's how it was budgeted that way as 5%. But that's not necessarily what the employees were making.
Yeah.
So.
But-
This would alleviate that, because if the pay scale is implemented, what I'm doing with this, I'm eliminating my control. The only control I should be able to have is being able to place them somewhere on this step scale when I hire somebody in, or any director hires an employee in. If they're well experienced, okay, we're going to start you at step 3, step 4, but now you're going to cap out in 6 years rather than 10 years.
Yeah,
So you can,
I
based
see
off their experience, you can start them a little higher, but you're protecting the employees by guaranteeing a step increase every year across the board for every employee.
Okay, but the problem, I'm not saying it's a problem. Okay, it's not a problem. But in some of the departments and different ones, you can see some that were jumping up.
Oh, yeah.
6,000.
Yes.
And then you got another department where some have been here a lot longer, but yet, you know, maybe just 700 or something.
Right.
And, you know, and it's kind of like, you know, this person might have been here just maybe 2 years and they're getting a $6,000, you know, for the year.
But the reason why you're seeing that is because currently it's not equitable. It's not
I know what you're
fair.
saying. I know
Yeah,
what you're
it's not-
saying.
It's not fair right now. So to make it fair, that adjustment has to happen to be able to make it fair for those employees. We're having a hard time recruiting public works employees because of the rate at which we pay.
I can see that.
I mean, we are having a hard time.
Mhm.
We're having a difficult time maintaining the ones that we've got because of the rate at which we pay. So we've got to be able to make that equitable for those.
But
out
I'm
there.
seeing more in the police department as far as some jumps than some others. And I'm thinking, you know, our public works, the streets, you know, the parks guys and all these, you know, it's like, they really need more
Animal
money.
control.
They need
Animal
more
control.
money, you know, and it's just like, wow. But anyway,
but you know how it's been in the past.
I know,
We look at one specific area and address it.
yeah.
This is all encompassing. It's going to cover everybody.
But even when they cap out, it's still not, I don't think it's fair as some of the others are capping out that, you know. And I understand police department's a whole different thing. I know you have your certifications and all this stuff that you have to go through, your training and this and that is totally different. But then again, you know, I don't know, some of the areas I think could be capped out with a little bit better pay for streets, parks. and
Let me
stuff.
ask, why are you thinking police department is getting the biggest jump? Is it because of the total number that you're seeing on the compensation by fund?
Well, I think there was one that just jumped out at me and I thought, wow,
Maybe we.
That's
need
a
to just go
big,
ahead and
big
go into
jump.
executive
but anyway, we can talk about that when we have to do go into executive session. And I understand what you're doing. I do.
Well, you can edit this. That's why it comes to you. You can make the ruling on this and edit it.
I like it because most cities, larger cities, Arlington, I mean, they
It's
do
kind-
this.
Another main purpose is to standardize a position. Like, okay, a police officer starts at this point, or a public works guy starts at this point, and there's not any, well, we think we kind of liked this guy, so we hired him at $4 more an hour just because we know him or we liked him, whatever. It's just kind of keeping it fair across the board in that sense.
I know what you're saying, but some of it doesn't appear to look that way.
Okay.
So,
We can discuss that further.
you know,
You want to continue?
but now you're saying this is a 3.5%.
Each step, from step 1 to step 2 on every grade is a 3.5% increase every year.
Okay, for the very beginning to jump to this plan, some of them's more than 3.5.
Yes, that's correct.
Yes. For the first year, there won't, it's not going to be inequitable. We're not doing a 3.5 across the board. We're not doing a 5 across the board, because those that are too low aren't getting caught up, and those that are too high are continuing much higher. So it's not equitable. We're trying to balance the scale here for the positions.
But
And
you see what I'm saying?
no, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I mean, there are going to be some.
And I know there's not a good solution to this in a way, because if we go with this plan, then yeah, it's going to happen. You know, they're going to have to
Start at some point.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. But anyway. Okay, I'm
But our
sorry.
lowest paying people, this is going to give them a boost. And that's what we need.
Mhm.
So it'll get them at a better starting off place, and they'll, 3.5% is better than 5% if you're making this much more money. So you're going to be making more hourly.
Mhm. I know.
So,
Well, can there not be a hold on the ones that are already making the big buck and then?
Well,
raise
this
the
would
other
do
ones?
that.
It will.
Well,
Is that
It
what
will.
you're saying? Oh,
It becomes very difficult if we don't adopt a pay scale as council. If we don't adopt a pay scale, then what you're doing is you're asking the city manager to come in and pick and choose who gets capped and who doesn't. And how do I do that fairly? How do I select without? Do what?
Oh,
I
yeah.
agree.
You
You
Yeah.
need a pay scale.
Yeah. So the question is, how do I do that fairly? That's why I asked
I think-
council, let's set across a uniform platform here that eliminates me from having any bias, or any director from having any bias on when they hire somebody and how much that position gets compensated, because it's set by the rules.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter who they are, doesn't matter their relationships with different people. It eliminates all the bias, and it's based solely on the scale that's approved by
And
council.
this scale was created through the TML survey of like size cities
I
in
understand
Texas.
that.
So, I mean, these numbers aren't just like pulled out of thin air. I mean,
Okay.
But-
all these surveys that we look at and stuff, yes, okay, these cities that we're looking at, they're a lot bigger than us. A lot of them are. We know that. You know, even if there's one that's almost our size, their tax bases are probably a lot more than ours. We know that. We have got a little bit better of a tax base than what we used to have. It doesn't mean it's going to stay that way. We know that. We don't know what next year is going to bring. True. So, we're kind of, the surveys, I don't agree with going out and saying, okay, all these cities here are doing this, this, and this. Maybe for them, it's great. But we
Then
only have so much money.
Can I ask what you would want to compare us to? Because the unfortunate reality is those are our competitors. To
Oh,
be
I
able
know.
to keep
I
and
know
retain
that.
employees and get solid work.
But we have to make it real that we cannot step up to what their level is.
Oh, no, and this wouldn't.
You
This
know,
still
we
wouldn't
can't
bring us
do
up.
that,
we're
Yeah.
still on the low end.
I mean,
I
the
know. But we still.
Tarrant County Sheriff's Office, they just advertised yesterday, starting deputy pay is $60,000. I don't
I
have
saw
any
that.
officers there. I have maybe one that might make that. I mean,
saw
so
that.
we're not getting up to that level. But we've got to be able to make these increases and start taking the steps, because the unfortunate reality is those are our competitors. That's who we're competing to try to keep and have solid employees. And when you invest in your employees, you're investing in quality work, which you see a return on that investment when you come out here to the city and you see improved streets, you see improved infrastructure, you see quality police response,
Mhm.
quality fire response. You see good things happening within city hall and city government. I mean, it's an investment. It is an investment, and the hope is that you get a return on that investment when you spend that money, and it comes back tenfold.
I know, but I just want to make sure that financially, we're going to be able to do some of this,
Yes, as it stands right now.
you know, and
it
I
is-
see we're showing a savings
Yes,
right now on
Yes.
paper.
Yep.
We don't know what overtime's going to bring. We don't know how much that's going to be. You know, you got a little bit of a gray area here, but you know, it's just some of these that I've looked at, I'm going, wow, this is a big increase for this person and this one and this one. And then this one, you know, is like, oh, that's kind of sad, you know, and I think that's what it makes you feel like we're kind of being unfair in a way. Maybe it's just me personally, you know, but I understand the scale. So
No, I agree
I'm
with
going
you.
to hush up.
I agree with you.
I'm going
But
to shut up.
unfortunately, it's gonna take 1 year of that.
Yeah.
To kind of start balancing things
I know.
out, start moving in the right
But this
direction.
is a 1 year budget, and that's why some of it, you're seeing such a big increase on people's salary
Mhm.
for this 1 year.
But it's still showing
It's-
savings overall.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's an adjustment, not, yeah, that's what it was.
Because that means the people are at the top end are gonna be getting less of a raise. The people that are guys that are making $12 an hour, they're gonna get a better raise. So, like I said, we can't keep on business as usual because it's not working. So,
The big one is what, said, the 5% will eventually bankrupt us because it is.
Well, if that was the case, we would not have agreed on a 5%. You know, you know, bring it before us and we're going, oh, we don't have money. Oh, well, then we're not going to do the 5%.
but
Very
for the
simple.
most part, we've done 5% every year.
We have,
We've had a couple times we had,
yeah, a couple times we didn't. It was
for
like
the most part.
3.5 or something, you know, but yeah, you know.
and,
But
and I
yeah,
understand what you're saying. If we come across 1 year where you don't give a 5% raise because financially we can't afford it. But the guy that's been here 20 years making $80,000 for doing next to nothing is still sitting pretty, while the guy who was just hired on last year at $10 an hour is still not getting a 5% increase and still in the same bad shape he was in to begin with.
personally, if it was somebody that was making that kind of money, it's not doing anything, should have never been kept.
Oh, I don't disagree with you.
You know, that means they're
That's
not
why-
doing,
that's
that
part of
means
the-
they're not doing their job.
That's why another good point on why a pay scale is important, because it's been brought up how in the past, maybe decisions regarding percentages were relied upon performance.
Right.
I don't like that. It shouldn't be based on performance. If performance is exceptional, I'm going to reward you in other ways. If performance is unexceptional, I'm not going to not provide you an increase that you deserve
Right.
as an employee. If for whatever reason there needs to be discipline, then we handle that through discipline. We reprimand or send to additional training or
Corrective
terminate.
action,
I mean,
yeah.
whatever corrective action we got to take. So I agree wholeheartedly with you there. I don't disagree.
You know, we went so many years in the red, you know that.
Yeah.
So many years in the red. And then when we finally come out of that phase, so to speak, and we started with the 3.5% and then eventually the 5%, you know. It was more the fact that the employees had done without for so long because we could.
but Judy, let me ask you
But
something.
that was a whole different management.
We were also under the impression that every employee was getting 5%. And what we're being told, they wasn't. They
They
actually
were
take that
supposed to
money,
be.
they were giving this person 7 or 8%. This person might get 2.5 or 3. When we voted
It's
on a 5% across the board.
It was supposed to have been,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but now.
So I'm just saying,
That's why I
But
said it
now-
was budgeted that way, but
But now a couple of 2 years ago, was it 2 years ago, maybe, or whenever we realized,
They weren't
how
getting
come this
budgeted.
person got this much and this was, you know,
yeah,
we saw it. Yeah, we know.
but that's been
So-
happening for a while, by the sounds of it.
Shouldn't have been.
So this will alleviate some of that. And like Craig said, it puts something, it puts it in writing where he doesn't have to make the decision on who gets this or that.
Right.
So everybody comes in, they know what they're gonna make. The only change would be if we come in and decide we're doing better than usual and we give them an additional 1% or 1.5% on top of what they're getting. And that would raise all these numbers.
So then
So-
once we put them on the pay scale, then there's not gonna be no 3%, 2%, 5% every year
Well, they would jump up.
based on their pay scale.
They
but
would
no
just get a
more-
step.
No more percentage increase or anything.
Unless, when we do budget, we assess that it's time to give an all across the board raise on the pay scale. We would raise the pay scale, which would in turn affect the employees.
The
So if
cost
you
of living
decided, hey, we're gonna do a
So say the
2%,
Cost of living is totally different.
yes, that's decided completely separate from their guaranteed 3.5
Right.
step increase for their
Right.
step 1 through 10.
So they're still gonna get a cost of living.
If council decides to do one, there may come a year where there's
Well,
no
yeah,
economy
yeah.
impact, or maybe the economy improves and things go down. I doubt it. But if that does happen, we may not recommend a cost of living increase. We may say this year there's not a need for one. But if we see particularly in the near future, if the federal government does, for example, raise the minimum wage standard, we're going to see significant spikes in cost of living. And we're going to have to meet those same standards. And we have to meet it equitable. We can't just say, okay, everybody that's not making $15 an hour, we're going to bring you up to $15 an hour, because the cost of living, when you do that increase, still affects whether it's $15 an hour, $20 an hour, $25 an hour. So we have to uniformly affect everybody.
You've looked at the salaries that other cities make. Have you looked at the job descriptions and compared the job descriptions from what they're doing to what you
Not
have here?
specifically the job descriptions, but the job titles themselves is how the salaries are broken up. So the general responsibilities like human resources, city secretary, finance director. We have some here that serve multiple hats. So a job description isn't going to necessarily match up with any other city. We may have some that fill multiple roles. And we just have to try to judge on ours what we feel would be best.
Well, if they're doing multiple roles, then that's when you should be giving them more than what they're entitled to. I mean, if you're saying that they're doing multiple roles.
Well, let me give you an example. So let me use Rachel for an example. I'm not going to talk about her pay, but I want to talk about her responsibility. Rachel's title is assistant to the city manager. She spends more time doing permits than she ever does actually serving in the role of assistant to the city manager. I mean, she spends the majority of her time doing that. I'm not saying she doesn't assist me. She certainly does. She does a lot for me, but she's wearing multiple hats by doing that position. That's a unique position that's hard to compare to necessarily a permit technician from another city, or an administrative assistant to another. How do you compare that when it's two roles with two responsibilities, two training realms? It's something, those kind of positions we have to take into account and consider where we want to align those folks up on our scale based on their responsibility.
It used to be the girls that always have multiple.
And that's
Things.
very common in small cities. That's goes without.
Whereas a large city, you might have 5 people that does the same thing.
Right.
So, I mean, just permits,
Yeah.
so.
Their scope is much narrower in a larger city.
We won't go into executive session now.
Yeah,
Well, let's finish the presentation.
I think,
It's
yeah,
it's only going to get.
if we're going to get into the individuals, I think it's only going to get more confusing if we continue through the presentation without going into executive session. So I think it's important that we clear this part up so we know where council wants to go, and then we can reconvene in the executive or regular session and discuss the benefits.
Okay. Executive session pursuant to section 551.071, chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code. Council reserves the right to convene in executive session from time to time as deemed necessary during the meeting to receive advice from its attorney on any posted agenda items as permitted by law. Additionally, council may convene in executive session to discuss the following: pending or contemplated litigation, or seek the advice of the city attorney pursuant to section 551.071. Discussion regarding possible purchase, sale, exchange, lease, or value of real property pursuant to section 551.072. Personnel matters pursuant to section 551.074. Item 1 is personnel issues. So we will go into executive session at 7:30. Staying here, Craig, or we want to go to another room?